Hello, hello, it is me, Legendary, and I'm back with another Yap video. Today we're going to talk about the Update 61 dev stream, and we're going to take a look at all the new features that we could expect to show up in the next war that should start in about 2 to 3 weeks from now. I didn't decide to make an immediate reaction to the dev stream after Tuesday evening, simply because I thought it would be more prudent to kind of let the dev server play out a little bit, see what people have been concocting, and obviously waiting for those initial bugs to be addressed and resolved before I really give my thoughts on what this particular update to Foxhole is going to entail. Of course, not everything is out yet. We're only in phase 1 of the current version of the playtest, so we're going to have to wait for more people to try things out, give feedback, and then eventually the devs will switch over to phase 2 of the playtest, and then we get to try out everything, as well as obviously have access to magic boxes that allows us to essentially duplicate items in the game. So this will be a limited reaction or limited discussion about what was revealed in the dev stream, and then later on down the pipeline I will probably make another follow-up video just to clarify a few things and give my final thoughts on what the next war is going to shape up to be. Alright, before we actually dive into the content, just a little bit of admin. This is some questions that I've been getting a lot on my YouTube channel, as well as in-game, as well as on Reddit, and basically just where have I been in the last month or two, why haven't I been releasing more Yap videos, and basically the long story short is it's just been a little bit busy the last few months, and I've been thinking about some new ideas and approaches that comes with the content that I want to create. So basically a lot took place in the last, let's say, 60 days, and I think it's worthwhile that I just quickly discuss where things are at and where things are going, because there is some interest to see where I'm taking the content going forward. So just as a quick summary, the last video I actually uploaded was in World Conquest 1-2. That was the war that basically got ended short because the devs needed to push the last dev branch out. And by the end of that war, I was basically just a little bit, I would say, shell-shocked by the end of that war because it ended so soon. And back then, WL was producing a lot of big material things that constantly got pushed to the front. Like we were doing BTs, we were doing blood tenders, we were doing Stormcannons, we were doing large ships. A lot of things were going on, and then for that to suddenly end, followed by a very, very, very short war afterwards, it was quite a bit of a shell shock for me to really sit down and think about, airborne stuff, etc. Additionally, the following war was basically a blitz war. And during that war, I personally was very, very busy. This was mostly because that war was heavily outpopped in favor of the Warden side, and I was playing Colonial. And it didn't take the Wardens more than 3 or 4 days to actually push directly into our facility lines. So I was tasked with making sure that the Wardens didn't progress any further. So that required me to basically log in every single day, do some combat engineer building. We placed a lot of landmines, which was really funny and a lot of fun, and we did a lot of QRFing as well as a lot of partisan work to prevent Wardens from pushing south into Heartlands that would ultimately threaten a base that we had built there, as well as obviously going into Red River, which was the typical WL territory. So I was very busy that war, and I just basically didn't have a time to sit down and think about a video, make content for it. I basically just was permanently, whenever I had free time besides work, I would have to log in and play, and that's where things were at. Following that war, my personal squadron within our regiment kind of burnt out, just because we were constantly QRFing and we were constantly fighting every single day, that we decided to do a Warden war. So that was a vacation war that we took, and essentially about 25 guys from WL decided that they wanted to take a break. We pre-arranged it with the leadership of WL, saying we're going to do a bit of a vacation war. All the guys that were fighting on the front line every single day to defend everyone's facilities just needed a bit of a break. So that's what we decided to do, but we decided that we as even though we wanted to take a vacation, we wanted to play a try-hard war because we wanted to really give like the Warden doctrine a try. A lot of guys have never played Warden before and they wanted to try a lot of the toys. So that's essentially what ended up happening. We went Warden. I made arrangements with Works to get a facility. I got to learn all about the Warden sort of Discord bureaucracy, which was really, really cool and very interesting. And maybe I'll do a video about discussing just the differences of organization pre-war versus post-war in both Warden and Colonial side. So it was a bit of a learning experience for me and I really enjoyed it. So I didn't make too much content then because, again, I was logging in every single day I was playing. I was organizing ops, I was doing logistics. It was a lot of fun. And again, this is one of the more enjoyable eras for Foxhole for me, just because it was fresh and new. And I got to play in a lot of different playstyles that I don't normally get to experience playing in WL or playing on Colonials in general. Additionally, I promised a lot of Warden guys that I would make a lot of Warden content because I would like to push this idea that I'm not just a Colonial elitist, even though I'm, let's say, a professional Colonial, let's put it that way. I do want to make more content, so I basically wanted to really put a lot of effort in making a lot of gameplay footage of Warden playstyles. I did a large compilation video of all the clips I took during that war, and that required a lot of interesting and fun editing, which involved a couple of the guys within the squad as well who really wanted to get involved. So again, it was basically just another busy war for me. So 1 to 3, I was basically QRFing every single day against non-stop invasions, and then 1 to 4, I was doing Logi. I was making content for the final compilation video. I was doing YouTube shorts. So it was just a lot, but very, very busy. At the end of that war, I decided to leave WL. That is a bit of an interesting topic that I'll touch on another day, but long story short, I left the regiment. Me and a couple of former WL officers decided to start a new regiment, and during that entire time, the dev stream then got announced, and this all took place in literally a span of about 6 or 7 days. So again, not trying to make excuses, but I have legitimately just been busy the last two months. So hopefully going forward, things will calm down a little bit. We're settling in quite nicely with our new regiment. We're getting involved in more coalition gameplay. So hopefully the burden of just organizing and prepping things will slowly ease up going into summertime. And during summertime, I'm going to take some time off from work just so that I can have some free time to play Foxhole and probably touch some grass and do some other things. I was thinking maybe doing some traveling around Europe. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so finally, the main question that I've been getting on this channel is, what has happened to Airborne Yap number 3? And this is the number one thing I always get people constantly ask me. And truth be told, I have most of the content done for it. Like, let's say 70 to 80% is done. Like the points I want to talk about, and I've started creating some slides for it. The problem is, I was kind of curious what this update would be. This specifically update 61, because this, in the timeline that the dev showed a couple of months ago, was the last content update before a maintenance update, which normally doesn't have new stuff, and then Airborne. So I was waiting for this dev stream to actually be announced so that I can incorporate it with my ideas that I was previously creating. And again, the main reason for this is our last chance to get a massive shakeup or a massive change to the dynamics within Foxhole before the devs are just going to focus on aircraft and air mechanics. So I really just wanted to see what they were coming up with. And luckily, yeah, they come up with some interesting stuff. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, obviously. But following that, I am working on Airborne Yap 3. I have to adjust a couple of previous thoughts because those have definitely changed based onto the current dev stream content. So that video is in the works. I have to rework it. I have to redo some of the slides. I have to redo a few of my talking points just to incorporate it a little bit more neatly. And as a short spoiler alert, it basically comes down to the Underground Fortress. I think the Underground Fortress that was announced near the end of the dev stream is going to massively shake up how air battles will play out. So look forward to that. I have some interesting ideas. So hopefully I can entertain you all with my predictions for that video. All right, but that being said, admin out the way. Sorry, it probably took like 10 minutes, but it's important to talk about. So let's move on and actually talk about the content for today. All right, so essentially I just have clips of all the major slides that was in the dev stream. I'm going to just give my thoughts on it, and by the end I'm going to basically make a guess where the meta of the game is going to settle, and then hopefully after a couple of weeks of testing we'll have a more or less an idea of how things are going to play out in at least the wars between now and Airborne, and then we'll see how Airborne shakes it up. So first and foremost, merch. So the devs announced that they are doing more merch. Notably, they're doing 2 flags as well as 2 patches, and they're going to bring back the patches from previous dev streams so that you can then order that on their sort of fandom merch page that they have on the Foxhole blog website. These are super cool. I wasn't super interested in getting the previous patches because it was all naval gameplay, and truth be told, I'm not really that big of a large ship naval guy, unless, you know, I jump on the sub and stab them to death or dust them to death. Haha, that's kind of fun. But organizing large ships and things like that, and just the headache of large ship border crossing mechanics, not a big fan. So I was not super excited about getting a naval patch, regardless of game balance. It's just not that particular gameplay loop that I'm that interested in. However, this one is pretty cool. The flags are super cool. I think I'm probably going to get both mounted on my wall. I'm super excited to get my hands on those. But the infantry patches are pretty cool as well. I think infantry, even though I'm not really a frontline infantry guy all that much, I'm more of a partisan. This is sort of borderlining my particular taste for frontline combat when I'm not sitting in a tank. I really enjoy running around throwing sticky bombs at tanks and blowing up stuff and rushing artillery and doing some spec op stuff. So this is very much in line with my interests. So I'm definitely going to try and support Siege Camp. I always say that Siege Camp can gladly just start a GoFundMe or a Patreon where you literally just give them money every single month without any player benefit back to me. I don't want monetizations or anything like that in Foxhole, but I would be more than happy to just give Siege Camp $5 a month or $10 a month, because I derive a lot of enjoyment with playing the game, and I think supporting the game is definitely worth my time, and it's definitely worth their effort. So I think they can be rewarded monetarily. So this is an interim solution for me. I'm going to be buying this. I'm going to be supporting Siege Camp. I really enjoy the product that they've released, and I would like them to continue developing it. So if you like Foxhole and you want to see more development of Foxhole, this is an indirect way to support the development of the game. So we should definitely try and support it, in my humble opinion. All right, next thing to talk about is the roadmap. So this was an updated slide that they basically changed based on the update 60 slides that we were all predicting that this update was going to be about. So in the previous slide, and I probably should have pulled it up, but I'll just tell you what it is. You can go take a look. Inside this box over here where it says update 61, it literally said that this was going to be a minor update with small features and game balance tweaks, as well as obviously bug fixes. The devs were sneaky. They changed the slide, and now it says builder focus update, and they removed the sort of quote unquote minor update from it. And yeah, no, they cooked. They cooked real fucking good. This patch is significantly larger than the last patch, and I would argue that this update is probably on par with the infantry update and maybe just one step behind like a major gameplay update like Naval. Now, devs definitely cooked with this update, and we have a lot of content that we can chat about. So it's very exciting. This is a massive shake up for Foxhole. A key component within the Foxhole gameplay dynamic is completely changed. The way that we approach bunker-based building, bunker-based design, bunker-based metas is completely new and completely fresh. And I'm looking very forward to talking about it because if you don't know, I have very, very strong negative emotions towards bunker base building, specifically concrete bunker-based building, because I always found that concrete is the most overpowered mechanism in Foxhole. And yeah, this update definitely addresses some of the concerns I've had with the game, and I'm looking forward to experiencing what new Foxhole bunker-based building is going to be like. It's a very, very exciting change. Okay, so just chronologically with what Dev showed, let's quickly have a quick talk about how I feel about these things that were introduced. So rocket artillery has received extra range. With the addition of automated fire suppression, I think this is perfectly fine. One thing to note is in the patch notes, the devs actually announced that high explosive rockets, so that is the Retarius rocket as well as the new RAC or the Rocket Armored Car rockets, have received a damage buff as well as a range buff. And HE rockets are now officially more damage than 120. And this is super duper interesting because I have always found that HE rockets, albeit very super fun to play, were not very effective because HE rockets, specifically HE rockets, cannot track vehicles. So this is now a interesting trade-off for range and damage versus the utility of tracking tanks with 120s. So I'm super excited to see this play out. From the initial tests that a few people have been able to do with making a couple of these tanks on Dev Branch, I have seen that the spread on these vehicles is significantly higher. So I think the net result of this change means that if you want to use rocket artillery, you need to scale the range at which you're firing proportional to the number of vehicles that you have that is going to fire. So if you only have like 1 or 2 rocket cars or 1 or 2 rocket trucks, then you're going to have to shoot at minimum range and you're going to have to play at a minimum range risk. So if there's counter artillery or if there's howitzers or if there's partisans, you need to prepare according to the number of vehicles that you physically have. But that being said, if you have a lot of vehicles, like let's say 20 Retariuses or 10 Skycrawlers even, then you can shoot at maximum range and fire over a large spread and hit multiple buildings, targets, or an entire front all at once. And that extra damage will hopefully, at least for HE rockets, will hopefully push over the certain thresholds of certain buildings and do breaches. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But again, the idea here now is the general vibe I'm getting with extra range for rocket artillery is if you have a small number of rocket trucks, you have to fire at minimum range, and if you have a large number of rocket trucks, you have to fire at max range, or anywhere in between, or you're given that opportunity to do so. All right. The next thing to talk about is buildings that are on fire are now suppressed. This slide is a little bit misleading, as this implies that a small fire like this actually disables the garrisons inside. And this was one of the questions that my regiment asked in the Q&A on Reddit. Specifically, how does fire suppression work on these structures? And we did get a reply, and the dev basically said that fire or AI garrisons will only get suppressed if the meta piece or the bunker piece is entirely engulfed in fire. It is not a linearly progressing suppression mechanic, like, you know, shooting an MG and then slowly but surely it starts to get suppressed. That's not how this works. How it actually works is you need to put the entire meta piece on fire, and once it's on fire, then the entire thing switches off. And notably, at least from the initial test from the dev branch, only rifles and only machine gun garrisons get suppressed. So howitzers and AT still function normally. Now this might change, but this is how it currently works. And I assume this is to balance the fact that fire should now be combined with infantry to break bunker bases. So what the devs have done with this change specifically is we now have a unique and different way to siege bunkers. And this is an interesting development towards the meta of the game. Previously, if you wanted to break things like concrete or large tier 2 bases, if artillery is not a viable option, then you had to use tanks or maybe bring in a large ship or something like that was near a coast. Now we have a differing option to assault a base. So for example, what I'm seeing because of this change, satchel rushes, hydro rushes, and havoc rushes would be a lot more viable if you have access to something like 2 or 3 flame tanks. So if you're playing on colonial side and you have like 2 or 3 Vulcans, those Vulcans can just rush in and put a front meta piece on fire. Even if they die, it doesn't matter, because if the concrete piece or the meta piece is entirely engulfed on fire, the MGs and the rifles will switch off. And if there's no defenses that lead up to that meta piece, infantry could just run straight in, plant explosives, and destroy the piece, because you also can't repair when something is ablaze. So this is a unique new way for us to engage in bunker base fighting. And I'm super excited to see this in action, as this is one of the sort of indirect way that bunker bases and bunker base building was nerfed, so that we can now use this fire mechanic in an interesting new strategy. So I'm super excited to see how this plays out. This might be a little bit too strong, and of course the devs could also make it stronger. Switching off howitzer garrisons and switching off 80 garrisons while they're engulfed is definitely a real risk that builders would have to be wary of. All right, the next change is CVs and cranes are now built at garages and facilities. Again, this slide is a little bit misleading. This is a change to how CVs and cranes are built, not an addition. Normally I say the devs normally add. This is one of the changes that the devs have decided that they're going to change fundamentally how CVs and cranes function on the battlefield. Essentially, this change reflects the notion that CVs and cranes are now a high priority tactical elimination target in frontline fights. This change has absolutely no impact on backline and midline logistics whatsoever. People building bunker bases, people building facilities will not be affected by this change. What this does impact is the very, very front line. Now, previously, you could build CVs and cranes within the building radius of border bases as well as relic and town bases. This is now gone. You can only build CVs inside of garages as well as a small assembly pad in a facility. Now, I've seen a lot of mixed reactions over the last 48 hours because of this change specifically. And I would just like to address one thing. A lot of the people that are discussing this change are discussing the change in a vacuum. Now, on surface, not being able to build CVs at any world spawn or border base is fundamentally a very difficult mechanic to justify from the dev side. So in lieu of this, the devs actually did announce a change to how the world spawn is generated, specifically the start of the world map at the start of a war. So at the start of a war, all storage depots will start with at least 10 CVs and at least 10 cranes. This means that people who like to rush neutral starting locations at the very start of the war do not need to go all the way from a backline to the front line escorting a CV for that tap operation. So let's say, for example, you're one of the players that likes to rush abandoned ward at the very start of every single war. That's a very, very popular city to rush because it always has equal footing. Previously, you would have to load into the pits or Callahan's boot, and you would have to build a CV and then rush it there, and basically whoever got there first, more or less, most of the time would win that fight. That dynamic has now changed to you need to spawn in at Salt Farms or Brineholt, if you're on the colonial side, or you need to spawn in Callahan's Pass, or you need to spawn in the Spine, rush to the nearby depot, and then drive your CV down and tap abandoned ward. So You see a lot of people on the Foxhole official Discord and Reddit like to talk about this as an absolutely devastating change to the dynamic of CVs and cranes, but ultimately this only really impacts the very start of the war. And the devs have already introduced a new mechanic such as the CVs spawning inside storage depot to counterbalance this. Yes, you can't build them in your favorite town hall anymore, but you can now build them in facilities. Now, of course, this doesn't impact literal first 3-4 hours of the war, but as someone who likes to spam rush building a small assembly station so that I can upgrade R1s to do funny R1 pushes using spear tips, I can guarantee you, if you have a hyper-focused mindset and you just want to get a small assembly station up and running, you can get that done within the first hour. It is not a large facility to build. At most, you need 300 gravel to make the pad to sit the actual small assembly vehicle on it, and then you just need 75 CMATs. That is something that you can rush build within an hour, maybe even less, maybe a little bit more depending on your spawn location. And once that is built, you now have infinite CVs that you don't need to hammer out. You just need to press the button and build them. Yes, you need to add a power station. Yes, you need to add a material factory, but that is not an uncommon facility structure to build. This could have been way worse. We could have required CVs to be built at like a tier 2 upgrade pad or a motor pool pad. But this is available for every single small assembly station across the entire game. You just need to find one. So after the initial 24 hours, I expect that most hexes that do not have a garage will have a couple of these small assembly pads. And again, this is something for solo players or newer players to also get involved in building. How often do you see someone wanting to upgrade armored cars in the backline? Or how often do you want to see someone who wants to make field stations so that they can make harvesters in hexes that have refineries but no garages? This is just another gameplay loop to get those players involved in the larger Foxhole community. And from a partisan point of view, I now have a juicy target to focus down and kill. Again, this is an indirect way for the devs to nerf artillery, because artillery, as we know, is very oppressive and very hard to defeat unless you have artillery of your own. So now, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna look forward to killing a lot of cranes during artillery ops. Even so, sniping cranes could potentially shut down an entire artillery op from both the Colonial and the Warden's side altogether. I do agree that Wardens are slightly more inconvenienced with the losing of a crane, because all the artillery guns are crane-based, whereas the Colonials have at least one artillery gun that you can pull the truck. Albeit very slow and annoying, it's still possible to do so. So, wrapping up, ultimately, I think this is a fine change. The devs have also factored in the logistical headache of moving CVs and cranes around. You can now make them in MPF crates of 5 instead of 3. So overall, this will result in more CVs being stored inside storage depots. There's going to be more small assembly pads, like singular small assembly pads with a single power plant attached inside major towns. And ultimately, we might even see something really funny, like a border invasion happening, and the first thing that comes across is a CV that's going to build a small assembly station and power plant to build more CVs and cranes for RT ops as well as TAP ops. So it's a shakeup. I'm interested to see where this goes. But right now, I think it's a fine change, and I do believe that some people are very, very much overreacting. There will be more importance for players to kill cranes and CVs. Essentially, that's what the ultimate goal of this change is to add more value to partisan gameplay, because partisans are going to eat good killing these things now, and potentially having indirect ways to nerf other gameplay loops, such as RD ops. Kill the crane, no more shells, no more RD guns. Super interesting. So I'm happy to see where this goes. Right. Next thing is loadout button changes on hospital. That's kind of irrelevant. Cool. If you're a medic and you spawn on those, you now have a button to assemble your medic loadout. Quality of life update. Love it. Pipe structures now have their own category. This is super good for people who like to use oil and are exclusively oil-based gamers. It is currently very meta to pipe crude oil to a salvage field, and then you build a very large oil-based facility next to a salvage field. The reason for this is oil is a great way to automate the creation of high-yield construction materials, as well as processed construction materials using the heavy oil recycler recipe, or as we like to call it, the vegan pecan recipe, or the vegan PC mats. Which, by the way, I was the one who coined the term, and I have proof. Anyway, discussion for another day. But anyway, yes, the reason why this category is here is purely above to the maintenance tunnel. A lot of the times when we run maintenance tunnels to keep pipelines from decaying, we've had to use the facilities tab, which means that every small facility that is built alongside our pipe network would get the benefits of our maintenance supplies, and that put a lot of strain on the logistics players. So with this change, we can now directly target pipelines that are built between various facilities, so that the pipelines are the only things that get repaired, and people who want to upkeep the cost or upkeep the decay of other structures need to contribute to the war effort and bring their own M subs. So this is a great change. I really hope that there are ways for us to squad lock M sub tunnels or maintenance tunnels along pipelines at some point. There is an interim way that we can fix this by building a singular slab of foundation, but then that can decay and that can cause trouble and blah, 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 blah. So unfortunately, it's not a perfect solution yet, but it's a step in the right direction. And again, thanks, Dev, man, for thinking about us oil enjoyers and how we build our massive intercontinental pipelines across entire hexes. All right. And then finally, there's some minor changes to Stlican Shelf. I have no real comments about that. There's an extra town. I'm sure the Warden veterans are super happy about this, I think. Minor changes to maps. Sure. Cool. Nothing explicitly massive taking place. So yeah, good change. I think it's fine. Another town to fight over. Cool. I see no problem with it. Right. The next thing to talk about is the early war bunker bonus. So this is to counterbalance a lot of the criticisms that the devs have been getting regarding how quote-unquote overpopulated factions essentially steamroll the opposing faction in very short wars. This was very prevalent in War 123, where I was playing in the Heartlands and defending the Plow with my massive minefield. We were just incredibly overwhelmed, and we couldn't get certain defenses online fast enough. I couldn't get my bunker base to tech howitzers until 120 guns literally started shelling us. So I think that this change is to target the notion of players who like to defend shouldn't feel punished for building their bunker base early and defending. And with the changes coming to how tiering up AI garrisons work within the bunker base tech tree, this very much establishes the idea that if you want to just build up a mid or a frontline hex with defenses as well as some facility defenses in the backline, you will be rewarded for doing this early and engaging with construction early as well. So this is specifically targeting builders who would like to get an edge in getting their defenses up and ready before significant threats start to hit the battlefield. Previously, this would have been great if you could get concrete finished as fast as possible. Rushing concrete early specifically was a good hurdle to defend against, or was a good hurdle against early game explosives. So specifically 40 mil and 30 mil from respective armored cars, as well as a defense against the ISG, a defense against the foe breaker, as well as the defense against mortars. Those are the biggest threats in early game pushes. So this specific change to teching a bunker base faster would have proportionally made defending against those types of attacks a lot safer, as well as getting bunker bases that are built on islands to get to howitzers as fast as possible before gunboats get teched. And that's something that we had to focus on when we played in War 124. So this is a buff to those types of gameplays. People that are actively attempting to build up a defensive line or to defend important logistical sites using facility-based defenses. So, just build a bunker base around your facility buildings. You are getting a massive buff in that gameplay loop, and you're going to be rewarded for grabbing a shovel at the start of the game. As opposed to previously, it was more inclined for people to grab a mammon and push and go crazy in that regard. Now, as far as I know, this buff is only applied to bunker bases. So if you manage to tap a town early, I don't think this directly influences the speed up at which this is applied. Specifically because neutral territory is not considered friendly, which is a prerequisite for this particular bunker-based buff to be applied to. I might be wrong with this. Again, the devs just released the information that we have on this slide, but the general idea is if you build a bunker base early, you're going to get rewarded with this bunker tech up currency that slowly runs out, but does benefit your team if you choose to participate in that gameplay loop. All right, the final thing, and thank goodness this is here, is short wars. This was the biggest criticism that everyone aired grievances with at the end of War 122. Basically, the players took too long to win, and the devs wanted to push out the previous patch because, this patch was cooking, I guess, and they needed to get this out in players' hands in preparation for Airborne. So, short wars are essentially now a mechanic where the devs at the start of a war will announce that the war will end after a certain period of time, and whoever has captured the most victory points or has captured a certain number of victory points is declared the winner, with the possibility of a stalemate being declared or a draw being declared. What this means for large regiments, specifically large logistical regiments and for large frontline regiments, is that this is basically a way to announce a break war. This is a dev implied break war, and it gives an opportunity for large regiments to touch some grass, play on the other side, not play at all. This is a great way to prevent large amounts of burnout, and essentially this is to meet the demand that a lot of players have been vocal about, in the sense of devs, you need to make resistance phase last like a week so that we don't have to play for a week and we can come back fresh, etc, etc, etc. So in my opinion, this is an interim solution to that. I don't think resistance phase is going to get much larger. There's some gameplay reasons for that. My best educated guess on that front is I think it's bad health for the game that it doesn't run as if it's a persistent war and it doesn't run for more than, or if it's offline for more than 24 hours, could be false advertising. So imagine a war ends during a Steam sale and new players are like, oh yeah, I want to play Foxhole, and they log on and they see that Able Shard is in resistance phase for a week. I don't think that is good for the developer's pocket, so I don't think we're going to get that. In lieu of that, we now have short wars, and players will have a chance to just play in short wars if they feel like it. I would actually hope that this mechanic gets extended into Charlie or maybe to Baker, where it's just perpetual short wars. So have a different quote-unquote Foxhole experience where we have the Able Shot, which is the sweaty veteran server, and then for Charlie's server you have short wars, and then Baker is like a mix of regular world conquests or short wars as well. The devs can really cook with this new war type, and I'm interested to see what they go with it. But ultimately, the initial plans that they said what this is for is to prevent another world conquest 1-2 scenario where they had to cut it short for timeline development purposes. So yeah, interesting. I like the idea. The community has already reacted to how they're going to be playing and using short wars. So let's see where things go from here. Okay, the next thing to talk about is 20 mil unification. So 20 mil has been a contentious topic for quite a couple of wars now. 20 mil was changed in the infantry update to no longer damage vehicle subsystems and also do significantly less damage to vehicles if they penetrated. So what this change now does is it brings it in line with the advanced 20 mil anti-tank weaponry that we know and love. And essentially, AT pillboxes are now more of a nuisance or a deterrent to vehicles as opposed to a palpable threat. This is something that I did specifically test. I jumped into a sort of public tank that was out in the open and I drove it into some AT pillboxes. And let's just say like something like a falchion or a spatha or a silverhand will easily survive 4 or 5 pillboxes shooting it simultaneously. Whereas in the current live version of the war, if you aggro like 2 pillboxes, you are going to die in like 10 to 20 seconds. So AT pillboxes have taken a step back in their stopping power potential. They now do bloom turrets, so if you aggro a AT pillbox, you need to like make it disengage before you re-engage, because there's a possibility that you just empty your entire tank's stockpile of shells and then you never hit the damn thing. So that is something that tankers will now have to be careful of. But for tanks that don't bloom, such as the Chieftain and the Ballista, as well as a couple of the accompanying push guns, that this change is just a straight up buff to you. So AT pillboxes that used to be a good crutch to stop 250 mil tank rushes will no longer be stopped by it, and you will need to rely on a different mechanic to defend against those rushes. So just spamming AT pillboxes is no longer viable, specifically if it's world of tank mode during the late game. However, the devs counteracted this by now making the AT pillbox fire at infantry, and this is really interesting. As a partisan player, this is a direct nerf to my loop of gameplay. I previously loved to use AT pillboxes as sort of a wedge to sneak in between tank lines or to get in between artillery positions to kill them with explosives. I will no longer be able to do this, and if I want to assault a particular position as a partisan, I will have to bring explosives to do so. So I will need to do a Mammon Rush, or I would need to more realistically use a Cutler or a Lunaire to clear all the pillboxes before I can attack into it. So this is a direct nerf to partisan gameplay and a direct buff to tank gameplay, because again, the 20 mil bunker just doesn't have the stopping power to realistically kill a tank, and ultimately a tank can just drive into it and shoot it at point blank range. And it doesn't matter if it's blooming at maximum, the tank will just ignore the bloom and miss and still hit. So yeah, interesting change. Direct nerf to partisans, direct buff for tanks running around and causing trouble. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more improperly defended artillery positions die to a outlaw or a chieftain rushing through the defenses and then just shooting the guns while they're inside their pits, or shooting the bunker cores. So that's something that we need to be careful of. Ultimately, we do have a alternative to using AT pillboxes, and I'll talk about that in the coming slides. The final things that changed was Tier 3 garrison houses, relic bases, etc., as well as safe houses, now shoot 30 mil at vehicles. They don't shoot 20 mil at infantry, that's only the pillboxes, so they still shoot regular rifle ammo at infantry, and if you're a vehicle, it shoots 30 mil at you. I will say this, driving a tank to rush through a town is ridiculously scary now. It is very jarring for all the windows to pop 30 mil into you. It is terrifying. It is actually legitimately scary. If you're playing on the dev branch and you want to feel what pure terror feels like go get like an armored car, or maybe not an armored car, get like a proper tank, like get like a light tank or get a falchion, and just hold W through like a town and just feel what it feels like when like 6 or 7 ISGs go off in your face. It is genuinely jarring, and it's a good defense against tank run-bys. So essentially the ultimate goal of this is tanks. I think tanks pushing into towns with an infantry column or artillery going off will be unaffected. They were barely affected by 20 mil anyway. But if you're a tank that likes to use like partisan tricks, like sneaking a tank through a town to do a tap op or to destroy a facility or to yeet and kill like a storage depot that's supplying a front, you will not be able to do that anymore. These ISG windows shoot really fast. They have a wind up, and that's something that we're not used to. We're used to like rifle wind up, 20 mil wind up, and MG wind up. These garrison houses wind up their 30 mil. So the 30 mil basically becomes like a repeater 30 mil cannon after a couple seconds. So yeah, tank rushing or tank yeeting into town halls, probably a direct nerf. You're probably not going to be able to kill a town hall with a single chieftain anymore. You're probably going to need like 4 or 5 of them, or you're going to have to clear out the G houses leading up to it, which might delay you and you get key rift. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But definitely, this is definitely a PTSD simulator. If you drive through a town and like just everything is shooting ISG shots at you, it's scary. It's legitimately jarring. So give it a try. It's kind of fun. Cool. All right. Hitbox registration improvements. I'll be very real. This doesn't directly affect me. I play on a relatively low ping. I'm quite close to the international internet exchange. So I played this a little bit. I tried it. I haven't seen a significant change in my gameplay loop. But I suspect when there is like 100 players on both sides, all clashing with infantry weapons and bullets flying everywhere, this probably makes the gameplay feel a little bit better. I have heard some counterpoints saying that a lot of players are used to leading shots and that's now gone and people now need to aim correctly. Yeah, I can totally see that being a thing. So long story short, you now can actually aim directly at players and hit them, and there's now some magical hitbox that follows behind a player model. And regardless of what their ping is, if you hit that hitbox, you will score a kill. So previously you had to aim ahead of players to guess where their hitbox was going to be. That no longer is the case. You can just aim at what you see, pull the trigger, and it will connect. And the server should recognize that you damaged them. So overall, quality of life improvement, and it's really funny because this is a problem that Sea of Thieves, another game I used to play, used to have as well. Hit registration was a big problem with laggy servers or laggy players, and it unironically sounds like Foxhole's going through the same problem. So yeah, 9 out of 10 times your shots will land in Foxhole, I guess. Ha ha ha. Okay, sorry, scrolled a bit ahead there. Okay, big update, huge. I was talking about intercontinental pipelines. This is an intercontinental pipeline buff. Pipes have historically been a real headache for facility players for various reasons. Most notably, fluids would build up inside the stockpile of buildings if there's not enough throughput on the pipe, and sometimes the pipes split in weird directions. I just want to shout out to Furry, who makes amazing tutorial videos. He recently, a month ago recently, made a video about how pipe and fluids work within Foxhole, and the poor guy literally went insane. Go watch his video. It's hilarious. He did some amazing editing. It was very difficult for him to figure out exactly how fluids work and flow rates work, etc. I definitely think that there needed to be this change. Definitely. So essentially what happens now is pipes are basically a magical wormhole that goes from point A to point B, but the wormhole can only hold a certain capacity of fluids, and adding in fuel silos increases the capacity of your wormhole. So if you want to throughput a lot of fluids and have a very large buffer, you need to add a lot of pipes and a lot of fuel silos, or liquid silos, what they're called now, to your pipe network. And that will proportionately scale the amount of fluids that can go through it. The flow rate is constant now. I think that's fine. That means that certain fluids just go through the pipe faster than others. but that can be offset by combining certain outputs to certain facilities into multiple pipe streams. So this does mean that you're probably going to have to build more pipe streams, but you don't have to do a lot of weird mathematical bullshit with liquid transfer stations to get the fluid from A to B. So easier to understand and easier to implement. Small facilities and small facility gamers will definitely appreciate this. Large facility nerds like myself who like to build massive pipelines, I will have to experiment a little bit to figure out what the ideal pipe situation or pipe layout and ratios need to be. But I'm a sucker for having a better quality of life system, even if it means for me to relearn my own understanding of things. So I'm perfectly fine with this. And ultimately, if it gets more people involved with building facilities and oil facilities, hell yeah, I'm all for this change. So thanks devs for fixing or changing the old system, because at some points I did contemplate just jumping out the window because I didn't understand how certain pipes worked. I have a pretty good understanding now, but this took me like 3 years to figure out, and most people don't have that time investment to do so. And I just want to shout out Xiah01, who has been posting about the problems with pipes for literally 30 weeks in a row. I have made it my personal habit to log in to Reddit every single Monday to make sure that this guy gets an upvote on his pipes threads. And I think the devs have finally opened Reddit and be like, yeah, we should probably fix this. And it got applied. So again, 07 to Xiah. You finally did it, dude. You can finally rest. And thanks so much for bringing this attention to the devs, as all facility players will now appreciate this change, I'm fairly sure. All right. So we're about an hour into the app now, more or less. And now we finally get to talk about what the major update is, which is builder features. This was hinted at in the update 59, where the devs announced that they were changing how bunker base building was working and a nerf to howitzers. And back then, I agree that that update was poorly executed because it addressed certain builder problems, but also just ultimately resulted in a net nerf for bunker base without any interesting gameplay to make up for it. So this is not the first time we see these builder features come into play. And the devs have basically given the builders a cookie, followed by a fundamental change of how bunker bases work so that they have to relearn the mechanics behind it. So these builder features have been a long sought after feature request by the builders to make their gameplay more interesting. So the devs have answered that call. So we now have some changes, not specifically buffs, but changes to bunker base building, followed by a rework and a revamp of how bunker bases are supposed to be designed. So let's talk about the changes, the feature requests that people have been asking for, a couple of nerfs to those systems as well. There are some nerfs that we have to acknowledge and talk about. And then we'll take a look at the actual core mechanic that changes, which fundamentally changes how the Foxhole, one of the core pillars of the Foxhole gameplay system, now corresponds in future wars. Right. So the first new quote-unquote feature is tripod mounts in bunkers. Holy hell, this is something that I've been asking for forever. It even got to the point where I made a YouTube video to demonstrate how to make a quote-unquote tripod bunker. And previously you had to do some weird stupid mechanic of like putting a tripod inside of a ladder, and then you put another tripod on top of it, and then you put a machine gun on top of it, or a tripod weapon, and then you can shoot out. And it was a whole lot of like complicated building mechanics, which I don't think the devs want new players to learn. So hopefully the devs saw my video and was like, hey, this is super cool. We should just make this a feature. And I mean, hell yeah, devs, I hope you're subscribed to the channel because it's in now and it's super exciting and it's super cool. If you wanted to see how we previously made these, I will link a copy of that video in the description. You can go see how we previously made these. But this is now just a straight up feature. You can just straight up put tripod weapons attached to any wall inside of a bunker base using I think it's a metal beam, but maybe that should be changed to a tripod. But regardless, you can now make firing ports with tripods in it, and I'm super excited. Now the game can be super interesting with the certain dynamic when it comes to preparing for large waves of tanks or infantries that might assail a bunker base during a flank or maybe during some low pop hours in certain parts of the map. Previously, you had to rely on emplaced machine guns or emplaced anti-tank weapons that were situated inside of octagons. But now, being firing ports and having tripod weapons that can effectively counter vehicles and infantry makes it so that they are not easily sniped and killed and then rushed by said vehicles or artillery or something along those lines. We can now actually have bunker bases that are fully prepped to combat a threat during off hours. Now, I will admit, I suspect there could be some griefing involved in the future, but the devs did put a point into adding logs to these buildings as well. So if someone tries to mess with your bunker base and remove some tripod weapons and then mysteriously a whole bunch of Teutons cross a border and start shooting you, that is something that, you could actively go and report to the devs and, get some people punished. But for the majority of the gameplay, 99% of the other gameplay, it's super cool. I really like having the idea of having Typhons attached to MG garrisons so that you can suppress tanks that try and push your bunker base. I love the idea of having an AT garrison with an active AT weapon attached to it, which means that you can now safely shoot vehicles that get too close to your bunker base, and if they dare retaliate, well, then Mr. AT garrison above you gets to take a retaliatory shot. So, super interesting, super excited. Again, I've been pushing for this change for a long time. I know that Secret Bismarck, who was one of the original people who figured out how to make tripod MGs, at least publicly. I don't know if there's other vets who've done it. We finally have this feature that we've been asking for, and it's super cool. I think the next evolution of this should be adding in push guns into garrisons, but they should be like a permanent fixture. So when you put, for example, you can put like a battering ram inside a garrison, but to do that you need to sacrifice the mobility of the battering ram. You can't move it anymore, and it uses the battering ram itself, sort of like a permanent fixed emplacement. Super excited about this. This opens a lot of doors, a lot of gameplay loops, and the cool thing about this is you can now sort of just like build a singular tier 2, tier 3 garrison in the middle of nowhere, jump inside of it, put some firing ports, bring up an ISG, and you could just start blasting things. So this could be an awesome tool for partisans. I'm super excited to like take a couple of shovels and a couple of dudes, sneak behind to the enemy Logi line, and just set up like a Lamentum pillbox or something goofy like that. So yeah, super excited. There's so many creative things that we can do with this, and I'm very excited to test it out. So this is overall a great change. There will probably be some balance considerations. I do know that someone on the dev branch said that you can shoot an AT garrison with an attached ISG and it doesn't retaliate, but I'm fairly sure the devs are paying attention to that, and they'll probably do some changes and some balance mechanics for that idea. But the concept of having a firing port with an MG attached to it at all times, awesome. Love the idea. So I'd love to see it play out. New trench options. So we now have the trench intersection. This is actually seen in the backyard. I did play around with this on the dev branch. It's these little 4 pillars, and it's basically a teeny tiny trench that you can attach stuff to. In my opinion, it's just a quality of life thing. You can now make trench designs a lot more flush. You don't have to rely on like making weird 90-degree angle turns with trench connectors that intersect with building footprints and things like that. So overall, super cool. It's kind of funny how a major feature or a major revamp to trenches was making the standard trench just tiny. So it's super interesting to see. The next is the trench hardpoint. So this is this little ramp that you jump over. I'm going to be real, we've been building this forever. You have to do some weird things with making a blueprint and then upgrading a ramp, and then you have to put a sandbag on it, and then you have to delete the thing, and then you have to rebuild it. The devs just decided this is too annoying and complicated for new players to figure out, so they just made a regular straight trench upgrade that has this like ramp wall attached to it. So super cool, and it might encourage players to build more trenches attached to their bunker bases. Without this, bunker trenches always posed a risk to enemy PvEing it, but with this being added now, we might actually have a way to assault, how to prevent assaults on our bases by just running up and putting like an MG here, or shooting it down, or throwing gas grenades, or whatever. No longer a necessity to use glitches or quirky builder techniques to get the same output. So super cool to have this, and it's really easy to implement and teach new players when and where to build them. And then finally, the sandbag visuals got updated. Really cool. I like seeing it's very girthy now. The dev said that the hitbox has never changed, but it looks like it changed to me. It looks really cool. So yeah, visual updates, always a good thing, at least most of the time. Right, the next thing is large structure foundation. So this changes how Stormcannons, weather stations, intel centers, and the new underground fortress is built. Previously, if you wanted to build these structures, you needed to tech a bunker base to get concrete. Then you needed to upgrade a 3x3 tier 2 piece into a concrete piece, wait for it to dry, and then once you have the advanced bunker tech finished, you can then upgrade the centerpiece into your various super weapons or super weapon like structures. This is how now changed. So how this works now is you can now dig out a 3x3 superstructure piece anywhere that you want, even without a bunker base, and immediately upgrade it to tier 3. Concrete is no longer a requirement to upgrade bunker bases. You can just put concrete down. So the way this works now is you make your 3x3. You can literally do it the moment you've dug out your tier 1 bunker core. It's perfectly fine. You can do that. And then what you need to do is you need to wait for the pad to dry. You need to attach a bunker base to the 3x3 with the upgrade, with the advanced bunker upgrade attached to it. And then you now need to use a facility to make the parts for your superstructure itself. The reason why I think the devs did this, I've been thinking about why they would want to make this change, is one, again, I think the primary reason is that they want to integrate facility gameplay into more aspects of the game. This is something that I have been predicting for a very long time now. Devs have been adding more and more stuff from regular gameplay loops in Foxhole into facilities. For example, we now can make our own player-built mass production factories using the mini MPFs or the infantry kit factories. Large ship production or ship production in general have been moving away from seaports, and now the large meta ships are built inside facilities. Trains obviously has always been built in facilities, so yeah, that aspect had always been in there as well. And this is the next evolution. Bunker bases and a lot of bunker base supporting structures now require facilities to work as well. This means that there needs to be more collaboration and more careful consideration for how resources are going to be spent in the game, specifically rare mats. Now, I know that players don't hate scrooping rare mats, but rare mats right now only have one purpose. That is to make ships. They are just the ship material. With this change coming and the requirement to building superstructure parts inside of facilities, you now need to make the tactical decision of whether or not you want to push out a battleship as fast as possible, or do you want to build 3 or 4 storm cannons in the backline to defend against a naval invasion. So, a lot more player agency is added here, a lot more strategy thinking, and I know a lot of people are going to complain saying rare mats need to drop more often. That is a very easy thing for the game devs to tweak. And once an entire tech tree is finished, the only thing that's spawned inside of salvage fields is rare drops. So again, I don't think this is going to change. I think the devs have specifically targeted rare materials or rare metals or rare alloys as a crutch to spamming overpowered or too strong late game equipment throughout the entire game map. what this means ultimately is instead of seeing like 72 storm cannons near the end of the war or near the end of like the final push of the war, we're most likely only going to see maybe 10 or 20 storm cannons in key strategic locations. To counteract the fact that storm cannons are very, very expensive and some of the other superstructures also require rare alloys and are quite strong, these weapons overall got buffed. So the storm cannon can now shoot holes inside of large ships. We finally have the player built coastal gun, and I'm super excited. I've been wanting to build these for a very long time because the in-game coastal guns fucking suck. They just shoot gunboats. Yippee, who cares? Gunboats is not what destroys your mega facility. It's a battleship that comes and destroys the entire hex and your facility goes alongside with it. So I now have a way to shoot battleships without me having to go into the water. I know that's a Naval colonial navy skill issue, but I legitimately don't like large ship gameplay regardless if I'm on colonial or warden. I played Inanaki last war. It was okay, I guess. I didn't have a super ton of fun. We did some cool partisan stuff with it, but I just don't enjoy sitting at a border queue and jumping out the submarine and swimming along the border and waiting for it to cross. It's not an interesting gameplay loop. I don't like it. So, therefore, I can now shoot ships with storm cannons. So I am perfectly fine with the storm cannon costing the same price as a destroyer or a battleship, or whatever the rare alloy cost is going to settle on. Totally cool. And it allows me to have the player agency choice of making storm cannon parts versus making a battleship versus making an Ares versus probably making a bomber. Fair. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I know it's annoying for the guys who like to just build and they just want to make concrete and nothing else. You now need to change how you approach your gameplay loop. Just like how the majority of other players had to change how we had to approach our gameplay loop, because I can't hammer out a Spatha or a Ballista inside of a garage. I need to build a facility to do so. Life is fine. Life continues. We figured out how to do it very efficiently and very effectively. It's not the end of the world, and I feel like this change is another one of those scenarios. It's a way to curb spamming super weapons. And there is now more player agency involved in making the tactical decisions to make storm cannons versus other rare material based weapons. So I like this change. I have a facility every war. I make facility parts. Doesn't affect me at all. I can now effectively use my rare mats in other ways than building destroyers and submarines and, etc, etc, etc. So yeah, pretty cool change. Looking forward to seeing it in action. Cool. And like I said, all the other super weapons have also been changed. Notably, the nuclear rocket sight now is 2.5 kilometers. This is a secret huge buff. This is completely missed by the community. No one is talking about this. But as a avid strategy player, whenever I see anything get a range increase, my brain goes, oh my god, what can I do with this? Like, I used to play a lot of StarCraft. At one point, they increased the range of a siege weapon by 1. People lost their minds. It shifted the game completely. This is something that I want to bring big attention to the player base. Nuke sites now have 2.5 kilometers. This is a huge buff. It's a proportionately larger buff than what it looks like. This now means that if the colonials do their big doom push into reaching trail, like we do every fucking war and then we burn out, we can now put a nuclear site at the very north side of Lynn of Mercy and nuke Brody Town. We can now nuke the front MPF from 1 hex away. That is a huge buff. So again, I would like to bring attention to the fact that nukes have a plus 500 meter range. This is a huge buff, meaning that the cost to building them and the cost to building intel centers is way more worth for your player effort. So besides the storm cannon getting much stronger and more expensive, sure, it's more expensive, got that, it is a more effective weapon when you build it and field it correctly. And on top of all the bunker-based changes that are coming, this is an interesting way to spend your rare mats as opposed to just building naval. So, huge change. Massive, massive buff. And of course, Intel Centers also being 2.5 kilometers. I think that's more along the lines of supporting the nuke coordinates. Having more tapped intel further away, huge change. Getting more information from a safer distance, huge change. More backline, oh, actually not backline, sorry. More midline hex involvement in bunker bases compared to only the frontline bunker bases seeing action. Think about it. How many times have you seen a midline bunker base with an Intel Center or a Stormcannon, and they don't do anything? They just sit there gathering dust because the front is too far away for their super weapons to have an effective range. This is going to address that, albeit not as severe as the other changes. At least now, maybe I can use an Intel Center in Blemish to like spot for Intel at like Fort Duncan inside Lynn of Mercy if we're trying to push into it, or if I'm trying to see if there's an invading force amassing on that little island. All right, so this is a massive buff to superstructures. So being able to build midline Intel Centers and weather stations, I guess, at least see some benefit now, because these weapons have a much more effective range and more effective use cases. I think the most underwhelming change on this slide is weather stations no longer require advanced bunker tech, so you can make a weather station earlier. Again, devs, I need to know why I want to build these things. Do I need to spot for aircraft? Is that what this is going? We'll have to wait and see. But for now, super cool changes. And again, having things facility locked, I think, is a fair trade-off for an overall increase in utility damage, etc. from storm cannons as well. So let's see it play out. I'm excited to see what the builders think of this. Cool. And finally, this is just changes to 300 mil. Like I said, it now makes large holes like a torpedo. Super cool. Effective counter against naval. I don't have to just rely on a submarine to scare off a battleship. I can now use a storm cannon or a rail storm cannon. And tier 2 facilities now unlock 300 mil as opposed to it unlocking near the end of the tech tree. This is a way to counter storm cannon races. I do believe that Max talked about this inside of the dev stream, but I would just like to reiterate what I think about this. Previously, storm cannons and storm cannon duels, which is where one set of storm cannons fire upon another storm cannons and they fire back and then they're dueling to see who wins. Those fights historically have only ever been immediately won by whoever teched 300 mil first. Normally. Most of the time, it's whoever got 300 mil first would win that fight. Now, with the requirements of setting up multiple layers to get to storm cannons, whether it be getting the tech on the bunker, whether or not be deploying certain parts to the storm cannon to finalize it, as well as to build up a charge inside the bunker base engine rooms, this now dynamically changes how that ultimate storm cannon duel plays out. And whoever wins the storm cannon duel now can freely decimate bunker bases that are in the region across from it. So the net result is storm cannon races are no longer dependent on the tech tree. Whoever techs it first no longer wins. It is now multiple factors that come into play, and because you can now settle concrete without a bunker core, you could potentially sneak in like a storm cannon in a weird position, wait 24 hours, then immediately start firing on a set of storm cannons that might be facing the wrong direction or come from an angle that they don't expect. So I like this change. I like that 300 mil is buffed. I know it's more expensive. It now costs like assembly materials and unstable materials to build. Cool, whatever. Again, as a facility main, and I can make multiple facilities to build 300 mil, no effect on me. It's a little bit more expensive, whatever. But the fact that storm cannons are now really scary and can shoot ships and an effective counter to ships, super excited. Coastal gun, gameplay LARP, activate. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out. All right, next thing is the changes to bunker garrisons. You can now make tier 1 AI defenses for artillery and AT, and you now have a tier 2 artillery bunker core or bunker piece that you can build. So my thoughts on this is the devs initially said that this was a way for bunker builders to quote unquote lock in what their bunker base design is going to look like. So you can now design your bunker bases the moment you have the tier 1 garrison upgrade in the bunker core itself, and then no one can fuck with it. So no one can really grieve changing a piece that you had in mind. You will now get exactly what you want much faster. I do believe that's what the tier 1 stuff would ultimately end up doing. But one thing to consider, when we account for the changes of the AT pillbox, as well as the fact that you can now put tripod weapons attached to bunker pieces themselves, I believe that the new AT pillbox is going to be standalone AT garrisons. Why do I say that? Because even though the AT garrison is not a super effective tool to countering vehicles, because it's very vulnerable to 40mm and to 12.7 and fire, etc., 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 it does allow the opportunity for a anti-tank tripod weapon to be mounted all around it, because you can put multiple firing ports on this thing, right? And you can basically have a 180 degree up to like, you know, a 270 degree or even a 360 degree, if you want to be really pedantic and experiment with bunker-based designs, in defending key positions with against vehicles. And essentially, people inside the garrison will now be your active defense against vehicles. So in the early game, where like armored cars, heavy armored cars, tank cats, etc., are the real threat to your early push bunkers, you can now use tier 1 garrisons to basically have a retaliatory shot to anyone who tries to fuck with your tripod weapon operators. This is an insanely cool way to make tier 1 pieces relevant. And if you've ever played Foxhole with me and you sat on like a Discord call with me, or if you sat in any of my voice chat yaps, you know this is something I've been desperately wanting in the game. AT pillboxes are cool, and I'm sad that they're kind of being a little bit nerfed, but I'm more excited with the fact that we can now build AT garrisons within like 10 to 15 minutes of a bunker base being built. That is something brand new to the game. Previously, I would never tell my guys, hey guys, don't bother building don't bother getting AT tech on the bunker base, because it takes too long. Rather go for concrete, rather go for observation bunkers. But now this unlocks with the first bunker base upgrade. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm super excited to building these little fuckers and putting firing ports on them, and then blasting tanks with 30mm ISGs, or blasting tanks with foe breakers if I'm playing Warden. And if they go, where did that come from? Take a retaliatory strike, then my big buddy AT garrison above my head gets to shoot back. Super excited. I have no real thoughts for the howitzers, honestly. I think they suck. Someone on the Foxhole official Discord said that they fire 4 retaliatory shots of over 30 seconds. When compared to tier 3 howitzers, I think it's like 4 shots every 8 seconds or 10 seconds or 12 seconds. Yeah, I think they're just there to counter like mortars and stuff, if I'm going to be honest. I think tier 1 howitzers is meant to counter like a small mortar team. Tier 2 howitzers are there to counter maybe like 120 gun. And then tier 3 howitzers is there to counter all mortars and all RD, like 120 guns and maybe a couple of 150 guns. But with the howitzer changes back in the game, I do acknowledge that overwhelming automated anti-artillery defenses is now definitely something that you can do more reliably. And again, with the changes to fire, making these bunker pieces super susceptible to being suppressed with fire, man, what a shakeup. It's super interesting and I love it. And again, quality of life, primarily a quality of life change for the builders. So you can now lock in the design of your bunker pieces. Even, observation bunkers can be locked in early. But ultimately, you can now also build interesting new things like the player-manned AT pillbox. Have you ever wanted to play as an AT pillbox? Well, just build one of these things and put like 4 Typhons in it. Super interesting, super cool. I'm excited about this. A lot of people are not talking about it. People are just like, oh, it's cool. I don't no longer need to put a sign down to like prevent the thing from being upgraded. That's a cool side effect. I'm just, what can I say? I'm overwhelmed by this change. Super excited to try this out. I'm combat engineer as like my fourth role in Foxhole, like Logi, partisan, tank driver, etc. That's what I normally play as. But now I'm like, yeah, combat engineering is going to be super interesting. I can't wait to build these things, play around with the designs. And I know it's tier 1. I know it's shitty. I know it's going to die to Mammon Rushes or whatever. But I get to LARP as an AT pillbox. That's super fun, and I'm very excited to try it out. Cool. All right, the next thing is fire suppression systems. This one is a hard one because you now need to integrate water systems within your bunker-based designs. Realistically, how I see this playing out, this is, first of all, this needs a blank garrison square that has enough space outside on the outer wall for a pipe connection to be attached to it. So what this means is you now need to add in pipe systems into your bunker base to effectively defend against fire. This is going to mostly be used on tier 2 pieces. There is a big discussion right now going on about the effectiveness of concrete and whether or not it will be useful to have concrete at all on certain phases of the war. As a crutch to this, tier 2 will most likely be the meta way to build push bunkers and to build and hold certain areas that are near the front. And concrete is basically going to be reserved for like really far back bases that have storm cannons, and basically you need to defend your storm cannons more cohesively. What this means, and ultimately how does this affect the fire suppression bunker garrison that the devs introduced here, is tier 2 needs a way to be defended against off-hour fire PvE. This is what this is supposed to counter. So where are you going to be building these bunker pieces? Well, realistically, you're going to be adding them to your meta bunker designs on a front line that has pushed beyond the immediate area. So let's say that there is 2 or 3 bunker bases that are the very front, and then you have another tier 2 bunker base like 100 meters away from that. And you need to defend that bunker bases against the increased range from fire rockets and HE rockets. This is the system to do this. So you add this to every single meta bunker piece, your bunker cores, etc., that are tier 2 and they're going to stay tier 2. You then figure out a way to get water to it, either through a pipe system or a transfer station or a literal fluid truck bringing water. I don't know how you're going to figure that out. That's up to you. But ultimately, the net result of this is that you now have a way to defend your tier 2 bunker pieces, all of them. You can defend all your bunker pieces by simply adding this structure into every single one, kind of like an engine room. And actually, you need to add an engine room to all of them for them to function as well. So, super exciting. And again, this was a feature that the players have been asking for literally since Inferno came out. Way back when you were able to like jump over a border with like 10 skycrawlers, put an entire tier 2 bunker base on fire and hop back over, and there's nothing that you can do. We have definitely seen an evolution of defending against fire attacks through the use of fire trucks, through the use of buckets being more effective, and through weird ways like building up blueprints to switch on to put fires out or something silly. I'm glad those bugs are sort of fixed now as well, but ultimately we now have a structure to do something that the players have been doing since Inferno. And again, I think that's a very common theme that this update is pushing. It's the same with the hard point for the trench, etc. So super excited to see this strategically being added to bunker bases. Specifically tier 2 bunker bases near the front of a massive push, or to recently captured territory that needs to be held. I would add in fire suppression systems because skycrawlers are scary, fire mortars are insanely scary, so let's see how these pan out and play out. And then finally, artillery shelter. Again, shout out to Secret Bismarck. This is something that he used to build every single war whenever his regiment would push into a new territory. So this is, again, one of the things that players were doing to protect key strategic bunker pieces from being immediately deleted by artillery the moment they started being built. So the artillery shelter is a way to prevent 120 guns from simply annihilating a push bunker in a area that is held by a specific defender. And again, Secret Bismarck used to counteract that initial artillery alpha strike by doing weird things like adding in bunker cords, by using a weird terrain glitch to like raise concrete foundations that you use for facilities in the sky, build these massive like quote unquote gravel castles or sand castles or whatever it was called. This is a way to prevent that from seeing any future use case in Foxhole, because a lot of the community agreed that this was seen as a quote-unquote building exploit and made the game unfun for attackers to fight into. But again, net result is the devs saw the need to make strategic parts of your bunker base defendable against artillery, so now we have the option to selectively make certain bunker pieces more resistant against artillery at the cost of being more susceptible to being attacked by tanks or demolitions, etc. So super interested to see this. The initial mechanic for this is you build one of these inside of a bunker piece, and then the entire bunker piece is more resistant against artillery strike, which is specifically heavy explosive type of damage. So this will make your buildings more defendable against 120s, 150s, mortars at 300. But it makes you more vulnerable to non-high explosive. So this will make you more weaker to Mammon rushes, Satchel rushes, Havoc rushes, 40 mil from tanks, 75 mil from battle tanks, etc. So again, don't expect to build these everywhere. You have to be selective, and building multiple of these have diminishing returns. This is something that someone confirmed on the dev branch as well. So I would like to give a fair word of warning. Do not listen to this slide. Don't listen, or sorry, let me rephrase. Do not listen to the picture that is presented on this slide. If you build a bunker piece that is just a whole bunch of these artillery shelters, this entire bunker piece will be flattened by one Mammon. Don't do this. The better way to use artillery shelters is you build one of these in the middle of your bunker base, in the middle of your bunker piece, and then all the neighbors around it, so all the like immediately adjacent and diagonal adjacent squares or triangles will get the benefit from being more resistant against artillery fire. So again, please don't do this. Please don't build this. This is a dev this is a quote unquote dev bunker. Don't do this, please, please, please. You will ruin your structural integrity. So yeah, unless you're a warden, then you can totally do it. But only when I'm not playing warden. Ha ha ha. Okay, so again, diminishing return. This is a big one. Doing multiple of these is a waste of BMATs, and you will just get your shit flattened by Mammons, so don't do this. Cool. Construction equipment. So this is something that we can't play around with yet. This is released in phase 2 of the dev branch, but the initial thoughts about this is I don't quite think the devs think... I don't think this is going to be quite used what the devs think that they're going to be used for. So the initial idea behind them is they're supposed to mimic a player with a hammer building stuff in the back line, building up blueprints that you've set up. Maybe this is useful to the solo player, but this is built at a facility, and it's unlocked at tier 2 facilities because it requires processed construction materials to be built. Right now, very underwhelming. I think a better use for this would probably be seeing it move to the construction yard, and then you build it with like RMATs, similar to like a concrete mixer. But right now as it is, because it's facility locked and because it's tier 2 locked, I think this is massively, massively missed potential for what this could help with. I have been theory crafting where this might be useful. And because it's supposed to mimic like a player holding a shovel or a player holding a hammer or like a CV tapping something, maybe this could be like really useful, like bringing into a frontline hex after you've pushed the enemy out and there's a lot of like deconstructing or reconstructing required to get the bases back up and running. I could see someone bringing one of these and dropping them, and then it just happily goes around and just fixes a whole bunch of stuff or rebuilds things or clears husks or something along those lines. But I genuinely don't see this being used to build like large facilities. I don't see this being used to like dig out bunker pieces because it's way too slow from what the devs showed in their little highlight video. I think this is going to be a way for players to do very, very mundane, boring shit that will drive you insane. And thinking back to it now, Max did say when he announced this that the goal for this thing is to do repetitive, annoying tasks. So if I can use this thing to build like train rails, or if I can use this thing to build like the skyhook, which requires a billion fucking pecons that I have to manually left click or click in, or sometimes use a small train if I get the correct angle to do it, then cool. Then this is something that I might build one of and then keep in my back pocket, or put in a storage depot, or put in a train yard or something to have in my back pocket. But as the intended goal of this will now build bunker bases for you, I'm pressing X to doubt. We'll have to see how it plays out. For people that play in large regiments, this is a completely useless tool to you, because if you have like 10 guys in a squad, you can quickly build something or hammer out blueprints or whatever. So this won't affect you at all. But for the people who, for example, want to build like a small facility, or like a small group of regiment, like 10 players who just want to play together, and they don't have time to like hammer out their own like concrete defenses, maybe this is something that they drop next to their bunker project, and then you just blueprint it and it will build it for you. Maybe that's a use case that the devs have for it. It's super cool though. It's super cute. I would love to like sit in the back of this thing and manually control it. Like, give me the ability to super build trenches or to super dig out bunker pieces. That would be cool. But right now it is basically an automated... It's basically just an NPC player with a hammer and a shovel. That's all that the devs highlighted that this thing is going to do. And it might build some niche facility things like the large crane or sky crane. I don't know. We'll have to see. I haven't played with this thing yet. I'm only going on what the dev showed on the dev stream. So I assume that it's a very slow, progressive, slowly building something up as opposed to doing it yourself sort of mechanic. All right. So that's it for all the new stuff. Man, that was half an hour worth of yap, but it's important that we highlight that the devs are adding in a lot of new, creative, interesting tools, which honestly a lot of the players and the builders specifically have been asking for since Inferno. There has been massive meta shifts with weaponry and like the mentality towards certain ways that players attack, and there have been a large amount of power creep to get the game to the point it is now. Fire has always been a problem, and the devs have been combating fire by adding in, more effective fire, water buckets, more effective fire trucks. But ultimately, we still have the problem of offline fire still just fucking destroys tier 2. But now we have a mechanic to counteract that. So I'm super excited about these new interesting tools that we can implement within our bunker-based designs, which will ultimately now result in the nerfs, or the quote-unquote changes to bunker bases, which is the final part that the devs are cooking with for this patch. So let's talk about them. So first and foremost, power unification. What this means now is you can no longer transmit power through trenches. So no longer can you build a standalone bunker piece that has engine rooms in it to power an entire bunker base network. So you can't do like 3 engine rooms to power 20 to 30 bunker pieces with like 10 garrison pieces or AI pieces inside of them. However, what this does mean now is you can now put engine rooms inside any bunker piece at no penalty. And this was a big thing that people missed. And people have already freaked out at the fact that, oh no, I now have to put an engine room inside my bunker core, but my integrity. That is no longer a thing. You can just simply put an engine room inside a bunker piece. It doesn't reduce the vulnerability whatsoever. The only thing it does is I think it maybe reduces the health by a small fraction. I think it goes from like 1,000 to like 800. Something like that. But the net result is you don't have to spend BMATs to build pipes, like the underground pipe upgrade thing. And you don't have to balance out how pipes need to be distributed or any of that mechanic. I previously liked that because as a combat engineer, power is very important for your frontline bunker piece. But it was an annoying mechanic to explain to new players and tell them like you can't power more than 1 or 2 things there. And was a lot of situations where I would have to argue with players on the front line, telling them, hey, don't put a pipe between these two bunker pieces because this engine room powers an observation bunker, blah, 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 blah. All that shit is now gone. Thank fuck. I love this change. So the net result of this is your individual bunker pieces are now powered by one engine room. And the way this works mechanically is that engine room runs on two types of power. In actuality, the devs could actually change the name of the bunker core, the bunker piece itself. It's no longer actually an engine room. It is now actually a bunker capacitor. If you've ever played Factorio, this thing is essentially a electrical capacitor that you can build inside the game, and it holds an electrical charge that then gets used whenever any garrison inside of it needs to use power. So you build the engine room, or I'm just going to call it the bunker capacitor, and the bunker capacitor will distribute the power to all the things that use it, whether it be AI garrisons that need increased vision during night or snowstorms or rainstorms, or your fire suppression unit that needs power to distribute water across the entire piece when it's on fire. Or if you have an observation bunker and the observation bunker needs power to detect intel. This is what your bunker capacitor is supposed to do. Now the engine part to the engine room bunker base piece here is the fact that the capacitor can self-charge at the cost of diesel. And the devs added in a lot of the mechanics from the power station that you build in facilities to the bunker piece itself. Notably, very important, loud and clear, you can now put a fuel vessel next to your engine room, and now there's a button that attaches a hose between the two to fill up your engine room so that you can now preload diesel in a reliable way. Hallelujah. Previously, you had to pull individual cans out of the bunker core, walk it over to the engine room, and fill it up like a truck. Like literally pouring it into the top of the engine room, and it magically powers the thing so that it produces power to defend your base. We no longer need to do that. We can just use the UI to fill the damn thing up, and then I can move on with my life. I am super excited about this change because what I'm going to do, I'll tell you right now, is I'm going to get a crane and I'm going to put fuel canisters, or like the large fuel containers, next to every single one of my engine rooms, and then once every week I can run up, press the button, and it refuels, and then my bunker base has power, and I can go log off and play something else, or I can go log off and play on a different front. Super exciting, super enticing. And additionally, I can now attach a facility building to do this for me. Oh my god, now I don't have to drive fuel containers everywhere. Instead, I can just make a single sulfuric reactor next to my bunker base, which is probably going to be near my facility anyway, and I could just press one button and the entire thing lights up because I'll attach it all with power poles. Oh my god, this is amazing. Quality of life, less chores. I know a lot of players are like, oh my god, the devs are going to make us want to do more chores with building CVs in the backline. You don't, yes, sure, we have to now MPF CVs, whatever. Bro, I can power my fucking bunker base with my facility. Hell yeah. This is a massive Logi facility gamer buff, and I love it. Now, the downside is I can't use the engine room to make power back into the grid because, like I said, it works like a capacitor, not as a power plant. But I now have choices. I can now courier a train load of diesel to my bunker base and manually fuel it up by clicking the hose button. Or, bro, I will just build a fucking power network that costs 20 BMATs to build a power pole, and I'll just build a massive ring of power poles through my entire bunker base, and then I can power the entire damn thing with one button. Fuck yes. This is an amazing buff, and I don't want to say any naysayers against it. Anyone who complains that, oh no, I have to integrate facility gameplay into my bunker base, it is your choice. And I love this choice, and I'm going to be doing it. Get on board with me because it's awesome. Less manual clicking And I don't give a fuck if I need to put more M subs into my bunker base, because I make 60,000 M subs every 3 days. I don't give a shit. Perfectly fine with this change. Awesome. Devs, I love it. Don't touch it. Okay. Bunker base placement changes. I guess this is the biggest point of contention right now in the Foxhole community. A lot of old bunker base designs are now fundamentally flawed. You can't build them anymore. In addition to these bunker base placement changes, there is a hidden nerf that was added to bunker base blueprinting. You can no longer create a blueprint triangle out of a blueprint square, which means that previously you could do weird things like clipping certain bunker pieces into each other, which resulted in like howitzer garrisons that are built on top of each other, or AT garrisons that are like facing out of each other in like a weird like porcupine sort of design. All of those are now gone, because you can't take a square and make it into a triangle using blueprinting, and then you shoot the triangle out to make it back into a square and then do upgrades. That is fundamentally gone. But in lieu of this, the devs have added in 2 brand new changes to counteract for this. The first is you can now put garrisons next to each other. This means you don't need to do weird triangular clipping nonsense to put 2 like AT garrisons next to each other, or an AT garrison and an MG garrison to have full 180 coverage from one edge. Now, this comes with an integrity nerf when you do that, but the fact that you have the strategic choice to do so without the need for some weird building guide or a veteran to show you how to do it, in my opinion, is great. I am very pro new player and very pro getting people involved in different systems within Foxhole. I want everyone to be a good builder and a good facility player and a good tanker and a good this and a good that. This is a way for them to do it. So I am very pro this bunker base change, even if it makes redesigning the entire bunker base meta have to happen from scratch. And if you are a veteran bunker base player and your entire world got turned upside down, I'm sorry, it sucks right now, but realistically, if you are dedicated to your craft, you will figure it out. I believe in you. I believe in those bunker base guilds on Discord. I am 100% confident you guys are intelligent and you can figure out new designs over the course of the next 2 or 3 wars until air comes out. I believe in you. So I think you should accept this as a challenge to make the gameplay new and interesting for you. Even if that means making your initial new changes and bunker-based designs vulnerable to 250, 150, whatever shows up to attack you. I challenge you guys to take this as a challenge as opposed to a direct attack on your gameplay loop within Foxhole. We all had to suffer through some changes within the game. Like I said earlier, I can no longer go to a garage and hammer out a Spatha. I used to do that all the time before Inferno, and I really like doing that. I can no longer go to a garage and just hammer out a ballista. It really sucks. I need to have a facility to do that. The devs challenged me to figure out a new way to make these weapons and tools, and I overcame it. Here is your new challenge. This is a challenge for builders to figure out how the bunker base system is going to work with the new integrity changes and the new ability to make bunker pieces adjacent to each other, as well as all the other features that you were given to prep you for this change. So give it a try. And additionally, the other change that the devs allowed us to do besides putting bunker garrisons next to each other is the fact that the bunker footprint, which is described here as the footprint for tighter fitting designs, are now specifically allowing for more flush bunker pieces next to each other. I had a brief play with this on the dev branch where I just made a whole bunch of random bunker piece ropes, the blueprint designs. And what resulted in this is I was able to dig out entire bunker pieces and then immediately put a trench or a new bunker piece next to it completely flush without it intersecting at all on a completely dug out tier 1 piece. So again, you are given new tools to explore new meta bunker based designs at the cost of figuring out the new breach mechanic and stuff that I'll talk about in just a second. Right. So huge changes to how you can use the tools effectively. You could make a lot more condensed bunker bases. Those might come at some risk of, 300 build destroying it more quickly, or rocket artillery being more effective against it. But ultimately, more player agency, more opportunities to test things, play out, and getting the meta redefined. And guess what? If you're a bunker-based designer, and you've always wanted to design something new that everyone else gets to use, and that goes into like the textbooks of Foxhole, congratulations, you now have a chance to do that. Get the fuck on the dev server and start playing, brother. Get in there, sister. Get in there and start working on these bunker-based designs. I'm very passionate about this change because I think this will shape up how we design bunker bases, as well as it presents a reasonable nerf to concrete, which I have been pushing for in basically every video as subliminal messaging, if you haven't noticed. I hate concrete. So this is a great change. And I think this is a way to challenge bunker-based builders to figure out a new meta. So I challenge you, figure it out. Show me what you could do. I'm excited to play against it. All right. In addition to this, bunker balances got changed. The big takeaway from this slide is the fact that AI garrisons now are tiered logically, as opposed to like rifles and MGs, then ATs, then howitzers. Now it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then howitzers are its own one, because tier 3 howitzers are still quite scary to a degree. They did get a little bit of nerf, but ultimately this is a faster tech tree. The most significant change to this, I'll tell you now, is tier 1 garrisons, so you can get 80 garrisons on the battlefield within 10 to 15 minutes on a brand new bunker core. Super huge, super duper huge. So you now have a way to defend against the fact that AT pillboxes kind of suck against tanks now. So big change. Having AT garrisons really early on in the war, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that's going to do to push guns and to armored cars. Guess we'll find out. Super interesting. So I love this change. Additionally, observation bunkers and like medical bunkers and engine rooms and storage rooms, etc., they're all tier 1 now as well. But these two techs tech very quickly. So realistically, again, oh my god, player choice into the game, more relevant than ever. Do I rush upgrading tier 2? Is this a really scary front with falchions and outlaws that I need to worry about? Maybe I need tier 2 really quickly so I can get tier 2 AT garrisons that fight a lot more effectively than the tier 1 version. Or maybe, you know what? I just need to defend against the random partisan or maybe a jeep. I can stick with tier 1. I'm fine with tier 1. Let me get that tier 2 concrete observation bunker out the base really, really quickly. Maybe I'm just going to rely on tripods. Maybe I'm just going to rely on tripod weapons altogether. I don't need to get these like late game techs at all. I'll just go down this tree and then rush for a deployment zone. Again, with the early game bunker base bonus, with the fact that I now have more choices in how I can defend my base using tripod weapons, as well as mines from the previous update, and as well as dragon teeth, as well as tighter fitting trenches with new trench designs and the new changes to sandbags with the berms and things like that. We have more choice in designing our bunker bases than ever before. Let's fucking try it. Yes, the biggest nerf, the biggest hit to things is going to be the late game concrete tech and howitzers, but my brother in Christ, maybe we can just build bunker bases out of tier 2 with fire suppression. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's amazing. Let's give it a try. And again, ultimately, the big takeaway from this is we now get a lot of techs. The most important techs to get into bunker-based building is on the first tier, and then everything else is just supplementary. Of course, you want your AI garrisons. Maybe you want tier 2 fast. Maybe you want tier 3 fast for your observation bunkers and your support bunkers. Player choice. This enforces it. So I want to give this a go, and I'm going to give this a go. And I'm super excited to build engineering-style bunker bases to push the front. All right. Overall, the changes to how integrity works is also applied to the bunker bases. This is what this slide represents. Basically, bunker bases now have integrity integrated with how bunker breaching is going to work. I'll talk about bunker breaching in the next slide. But ultimately what this means is the way you design your bunker bases fundamentally different. you need to avoid building these outcroppings inside your bunker base. You need to build solid blocks of bunker bases that might get angled using triangles. So requires a lot of tinkering. The net result of this, in my opinion, is triangles in the inner sections to your bunker bases is super important now. The more triangles you have, the more interconnected dots that you have on every single edge. That is just a mathematical reality. The more triangles you build your structure out of, the more defensive and the more structurally integral it is. Go look at bridges. Bridges are all mostly designed out of arcs and out of triangles because it is a mathematically strong structure in terms of stress distribution on the material that you use to construct it with. It's just a fact. This is now being applied to bunker-based design, although from a top-down perspective. So, in my opinion, the way this is going to work is a lot more triangles are going to be used in the center point to your bunker-based design, followed with the optional choice of adding in squares for non-combative purposes, such as your engine room, your fire suppression room, as well as your choice of adding in a artillery shelter to buff all the adjacent pieces to it, and then ultimately you will have your individual squares that will have your garrisons on top of it. I can't speak to what the meta is going to be right now, but I suspect based on this slide, that's what the design principles are going to flow towards. We're going to be making a lot more things with triangles because it's less edges to worry about, and we're going to be strategically adding in squares to make your bunker bases more robust in their usability, whether it be engine rooms or whether it be fire suppression rooms or whether it be a combination of both, and of course the strategic choice of adding in that artillery shelter. But again, super interesting, and ultimately I can now slap on 1 billion tripods on the outer edge, making my passive defense an additional active defense if the front is pushing in, or if there's like a low pop PvE Cutler group or a Lunaire group that is coming to PvE my base. I can preemptively put gas grenades as a colonial in those, or I can put in MG ammo or arc ammo as a warden and blast any motherfuckers that try and attack my bunker base while I'm not there. I think it's super cool and allows for more QRF options, and the design of your bunker base is directly proportional to this slide. So study this slide. If you're a serious master builder, you need to study the slide and figure out how it works and apply this logic to all future designs that you're working in. Again, I challenge you, if you're a master builder on Foxhole and you've been building for every single war your entire life that the game has been out for, I challenge you to figure this out, because I know you'll enjoy the challenge. I know good players will figure this out and ultimately make their bunker bases cool and interesting to play in with all this like really tight, like, I mean, look how close these trenches are to the bunker base. It's super cool. So I love to see it, and I love to see the result of these changes. All right, finally, breaching. So breaching is now a mechanic that the devs kind of explained. I will say that the Reddit Q&A gave a lot more insight to how breaching works compared to the actual presentation, the actual dev stream. But the way that breaching works now is integrity is directly proportionate to how easy it is for an impact weapon to break into and make a hole inside your bunker base so that infantry can rush in and attack you from the inside. I think this is a way to counteract the very, very, very fun gameplay of sitting inside a bunker base with 500 BMATs in your inventory and repairing against, at 250 tank rush. I'm going to be honest, I never enjoyed that gameplay loop, and I specifically hated playing against that gameplay loop because it's super easy for like 5 dudes with BMATs and gas masks to out-repair literal 100 players worth of weapons being thrown, or 100 players worth of munitions being thrown at them with the simple fact that you have BMATs to fix. So this is a direct counter to that gameplay. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll have to see. Devs can always tweak the numbers about how certain items can get breached, or how certain parts of your bunker base can be breached, as well as the specific weapons that are targeted towards the breach mechanic in and itself. But essentially how it works is every single base that is designed improperly will have a really high breach percentage. Breach percentage is tied directly to the type of bunker pieces that you attach to it. So if you build a bunker base that's just pure AI, like just, rifle garrison, rifle garrison, rifle garrison, rifle garrison, 80 garrison, rifle garrison, that's going to have a really high breach percentage, which means that if an individual high breach weapon hits that square or that garrison, it will immediately make a hole in it, and infantry could just rush in and fuck up the people defending it from the inside. So what you need to do now when you're designing your bunker bases is you need to balance out your types of bunker pieces that is being used with the design of the edges that you have in comparison to the type of weaponry that you're trying to defend against. So this means you can no longer build bunker meta pieces that defend against everything. You have to strategize a little bit more. So if you want to build a bunker piece that's really resilient against tank and artillery, then you add 80 garrisons and howitzers, and then you balance out the number of squares that you need to make it integrally sound. But you have to acknowledge that bunker piece is probably going to be weak against infantry and fire. So you need to supplement it by adding in garrisons that specifically are designed to counteract with that. Now, I know a lot of people are saying on FOD that, well, I can't build a bunker piece that will defend against chieftains and infantry and artillery, which is the main way that you can break bunker pieces. But again, I challenge you to maybe use something other than an AI garrison to do it. When was the last time that people integrated dragon teeth into their bases? I don't see a lot of dragon teeth. I see some dragon teeth in certain chokes, but I don't see dragon teeth being incorporated into bunker bases. And this has been a mechanic for a very long time, ever since Havocs was added, because Havocs was designed to counter dragon teeth. So maybe more dragon teeth and more dragon teeth and more anti-infantry garrisons need to be used to counter infantry satchel rushes to defend against your anti-artillery howitzer pieces. Maybe that's something that we now need to figure out. If you don't do that, then hello, the breaching mechanic will murder the base that you build. And again, right now, the breaching mechanic feels a little bit overtuned. I've seen reports of people able to break concrete with mammons, like dry tier 3 concrete with mammons. I feel like that's something that the devs can easily tweak and fix. We are still in the dev branch stage. We're still in phase 1. We don't even have magic boxes yet. So people can figure it out. But ultimately, the devs are trying to target the fact that defenders have an easy life with overpowered howitzers, overpowered concrete health integrity checks, and the fact that I can just defend against your large operation with BMATs, a gas mask, and a filter. The breach mechanic is trying to prevent that. So let's let the devs cook. Let's see how it plays out. The devs can always review the footage and go, you know what? 250 breaches too easily. Nerf it by 10%. The new breach rockets too strong. Nerf it. The devs can always nerf things. They can always remove demolition damage. There's a lot of things that they can do, but what they can't do is roll back to the way the things that were. Because I'm gonna be honest, fighting concrete sucks. We can see that effect in the Charlie Wars. Now I know the able elitists are like, oh, we shouldn't care about Charlie, but Charlie is a test bed for new players and new ideas. We can't just get rid of Charlie that easily, even though we want to. I know the devs would love to have more people scooping fields for them. The vets would love to have more people scooping fields to them, but realistically speaking, the newer players need a platform to play too. And the reason why Charlie players fucking die is they run into concrete and they don't know how to break it. And that's a Yap video I made a couple wars ago. And it's still true to this day. So maybe, just maybe, having something like a breach mechanic where you can rush infantry into a broken bunker piece and kill all the guys in the core and win, maybe that's something that would be fun to play against. And the bunker builders, you know what? Maybe you should add some anti-infantry mines. Maybe you should add in more barbed wire inside of your trenches. Maybe the fact that trenches can now be made one way with a single BMAT click of a button, maybe you should add more trenches to your bunker bases. I don't know, but I'm going to experiment with this. I'm going to have fun with this, so I challenge other people to do the same. It's a super exciting change. I'd love to see it in action, and ultimately it adds a new vector of attack going forward into Foxhole. Actually, you know what the breach mechanic is actually for? I'm gonna make a quick a quick airborne prediction. So, intermittent airborne prediction. Yap number 3. You know where this is gonna go? The fact that I could probably drop paratroopers on top of a bunker core, breach it, snipe a Stormcannon or something like that, and then disappear because they didn't add proper defenses. They didn't design their bunker base properly. Maybe that's something that devs are aiming for with this mechanic. This is an indirect way to kill bases with breaching it and rushing it with infantry. Paratroopers are infantry too. Hey, let's put 1 to 1 together and see where this goes. Ultimately, I like this mechanic. Right now it's a little bit too strong. I admit it's too strong. Maybe the devs need to figure out a different way to make patching a little bit easier. Maybe they need to make the breach crumble before it collapses and people can probe it up with metal beams, or maybe we could put sandbags onto holes or something like that. Let's let DevMan cook. But for now, I like the mechanic. I like where it's going. And it, again, makes players rethink how they design their bases. Maybe you should just add some fucking sandbag walls to your base, bro. Maybe that's the way to go. We'll have to wait and see. Alright, and again, to complement bunker base breaching, UI updates. I have no strong feelings about this. It's super cool. You can now get information with a hammer. I think they're trying to target down websites like Foxhole Planner or Foxhole HQ, where you can design your bunker bases and see what meta is available to build. I don't think those tools are going to be affected at all, but this is just a way for players to see exactly what their bunker base is going to look like after they do an upgrade or make a change. So excited about this. Let's see what happens. Right, and then next thing to talk about besides the bunker base changes is they added in these are the naval outfits. So this is the Warden one. I will admit it's a little bit too green for my liking. Be kind of cool if they add a bit more blue, but I respect if they want to go with a different water aesthetic. I do like that the Wardens have knee-high socks. It's super cute. Definitely targets a certain part of the culture of Wardens, so love to see it. The Colonial one, I kind of like it. A lot of people saying that they look like peasants and they're a bit scruffy. Honestly, maybe that's the colonial life. Maybe you're just a peasant, you're a bit scruffy. I kind of like this aesthetic. I really like the fact that there's a dagger and an M subs attached to their belt or their bandolier. That's super cool. Mechanically, what both of these outfits do is you can walk through water more efficiently. It's specifically targeting ships that are flooded, and you can now carry more water and more water buckets without being encumbered. So it has an indirect use case for being used for firefighting with a bucket. But other than that, it's just drip. I think the one is slightly cooler. It's called, I think it was called the gentleman's uniform or something like that. So it's really cool, but I don't know. I kind of look like a Sea of Thieves pirate with this one, so I like the aesthetic. It's kind of cool. They both have their own unique charm to it. So no massive negative feeling. I do give one more point to the Warden one just because I think this kind of looks like a colonial uniform. So maybe there's a bit of spy action happening here as well. Whatever. I like it though. It's cool. And then, this is the new weapons. So the Warden's got a new heavy explosive rocket GAC. So it's called the RAC, I guess, the Rocket Armored Car. It shoots 10 rockets. I've heard it's quite expensive, but yeah, cool. Warden Retarius. I would love to have a Colonial Skycaller at some point, but this is a needed addition because the Jester, which is this one, got changed. The Jester is no longer a high distance or a long distance rocket artillery vehicle. It's now akin to a new form of a a chieftain. You use this to lock into a frontline bunker base that's been hit by something previously, and then you hit it with high demolition rockets, and they have a high chance to create breaches, which is the new mechanic that players are gonna have to figure out. These are super cool. A lot of people saying they look overpowered, but it's too soon. And the fact that they're on the scout tank chassis, which means that they are super susceptible to a partisan with stickies. I see myself easily running into these guys with sticky bombs and killing them before they get to shoot their rockets and do anything. So yeah, I think they're fine. They're a little bit expensive. They cost the same steel cost as, I believe, a Stygian bolt. I think they cost the same as a Stygian bolt. So, you know, for colonial Protestants watching this video, if you stick one of these things, you've essentially killed a Stygian bolt that could fuck bases. So, pretty cool. No big thoughts on this. I really like the design. I like that they kept the design. A lot of people don't like the King Jester. I felt it was very overwhelming to use. I did use one in War 124. But to me personally, I like the aesthetic of it. I like the fact that there's like these rocket pods on the side. It's an open top. It's kind of cool. So I'm glad that they just reused it to shoot these new impact rockets or whatever they're called. And then finally, the Alekto. So funnily enough, on the very first day of the previous dev branch, this is what the Symphony or the Tisiphone used to do. It used to have this like really high arc 250 shot. And on the FOD feedback forum, I literally made a thread that says, I kind of like the 250, but I feel like it's really good at killing concrete now because I can shoot over walls and I can do weird things like put a tank in the way outside of AT retaliation range. I put the Symphony behind it and then I shoot over the tank and hit the bunker base and it can't retaliate because it doesn't have line of sight. And I believe the devs may have nerfed the Symphony because of that comment, or maybe the other people that gave similar comments. And the result of that is I really do believe that the devs like the idea of this like high angle arc weapon. That was the feedback that people gave on the previous public dev branch for update 60. So I think this is the natural evolution, and this is a really cool weapon. It's very girthy. Siege Camp living up to their name, actual siege camping new artillery weapons. So again, super excited to give this a try. I do believe this costs the same as the Jester, so this is a Stygian price. So yeah, happy to play with it as soon as it's released in phase 2. And yeah, see how it goes. Right now, if it plays the same as the Symphony before, but you need to deploy it, it's going to be a concrete eating monster. The same as the Jester. So I like it. I want to see it in action. Maybe this is finally the tool that the Charlie's player needs to finally break those concrete monsters that keep preventing them from finishing their goddamn wars. So let's see it play out. Cool. This is just the slides of what they look like. So this is called the Shatter Missile rocket. Yeah, looks cool. Same as the HE rocket, but obviously it probably does breaching or demolition damage. And then the bunker bust, literally, bunker buster 250 bull, the 250 Furry shell. It's super cool. Oh, it's Fury. Whatever. Furry shell, colonial. Who cares? It's really cool. And again, this is what's used by the Alekto, or the Symphony 2.0. I'm just gonna call this the high velocity 250. It just looks like it doesn't do more damage. It just does more breach damage. It does demolition damage. So. Yeah, it's the same as this one. I don't think this does more damage than a regular HE rocket, except it does demolition damage and it has a higher breach chance than a regular explosive. So yeah, super cool. And then finally, the devs teased this. They haven't given much detail other than this is a new Stormcannon level bunker base thing that you can add to a 3x3 or maybe even larger. And all we know is it is an underground fortress that will protect you against explosives. So my guess is, and I'm reaching for straws here because I genuinely don't know. I think this is a way to make certain attachments to this garrison immune from artillery fire. That's my guess. Now, the main goal for this is to provide a place for players to spawn if they're being shelled to death by battleships, storm cannons, or SPGs. This is where I feel like this thing is going to be useful for. Because the dev specifically said that if you want to counter this, you need to rush it with explosives. So Hydra rushes, Havoc rushes, Satchel rushes, this is the way that you kill this thing. Or potentially even fire. Although I know fire is not that good against concrete, and you could put a fire suppression on this. It's super interesting. Now, here's my second airborne prediction part of this video. I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that this is going to be a precursor for bomb shelters for aircraft raids. I think the devs are going to cook. They're going to add things maybe to like weather stations or to intel centers, which will warn players about, warning, incoming air raid, take cover. this is the structure that where players are going to have to scramble towards. So I think that this is going to be the starting point for anti-aircraft fire. I think on top of here, we're probably going to get mounting points for like the EMGs to like point up, or the flak cannons, or the flak 88s that Big Bear keeps talking about, Big Bear Berg. So I'm super excited to see this thing play out. We have no idea what the stats of this thing is. We have no idea how it works. It's not in the game files yet. We have some suspicions about what it could do. The devs kind of like teased it in the dev stream. So it's up for interpretation. The only thing that we do know is we now have some underground gameplay. We have a large spawn point at the bottom, and I know that it has a stockpile. So you can load this up like a bunker core, and you can set your spawn in it, but it doesn't provide AI. So this is basically a safe house, a player-built safe house that can't die to artillery or is just outright immune to artillery, which is something that it might be able to do. And the only way that infantry can get inside is by rushing the doors and then shooting it. We might actually see a big use case for like daggers and clubs now, because that might be the most efficient way to do close quarter combats. Or, flamethrowers. Rush in with a flamethrower dude to wipe out all the things. You rush in, you place your havoc charges, you blow it up, you suicide charge into it, you plant the hell bomb, and you kill everyone. It's super cool. I'm excited about this change. I don't know what this is quite yet, but I don't know, brother. That kind of looks like mounting points and I can imagine some anti-aircraft guns on this thing. And then they try and bomb this, and then the anti-aircraft guys kill them, because this is also a very identifiable landmark on the bunker base itself. You can clearly see that this is a underground bunker or an underground fortress being placed inside of it. And ultimately, another big brain idea that this could be is in the future we might be able to like link these up together. So imagine literal like GLA tunnel from generals. So you build one of these in one part of your base, and then you build another one like closer to the front or another part of your base, and maybe this is a way for players to like fast travel between them inside the same hex. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But super exciting. This to me is a starting point to Airborne. This is the first key. This is the first puzzle piece that the devs are teasing for us to in an expanded Foxhole experience that we can do Airborne with. And yeah, again, I'm excited to see where they cook with this. So let's just wait and see. All right. So yeah, super excited. I don't know exactly how this works. We'll have to see as things goes. All right. So that's it for now. That's my probably like 3-hour yap about what I think about the dev update. The big takeaways to me is massive shift in bunker-based designing and bunker-based building. A lot of new bunker-based tools for people to play around with. Specifically tighter bunkers, new bunker-based mechanics, new complicated mathematics to figure out, which might not be player-friendly, but it will be definitely vet intriguing. And again, I think the devs intentionally did this to present a new shiny for the players to figure out. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this goes. Obviously, dev branch is still going. If you feel like playing in the dev branch, just go to your Foxhole launch options. There's a button that literally you swap it to the dev branch beta version of the game. You launch the game, top right corner, there's a button that you just click, drag down, select dev branch, and then you press play. You can play in either faction, and then it just plays like regular Foxhole. And once phase 2 starts, which is usually announced on the Foxhole official Discord as well as the blog, you then have access to a item called a magic box, and a magic box allows you to duplicate items so that you can build things faster and try things out more quickly. And that's most likely where I'll be playing. I'll probably be doing more things in phase 2 than phase 1, because I'm still trying to figure out how to manage regiments, which is a new challenge for me as well. Okay, that's it for me for now. There is more content on the way. I did promise more YAP videos. Specifically, Airborne 3 is probably going to be the next YAP video, unless something immediately interesting crops up, like massive changes to the dev branch. We'll see. And hopefully I can give you more insights about where Airborne is going. The next topic is literally about like ground to air combat. That's the main thing I want to talk about. And again, I think the fact that I waited a little bit has paid off, because man, I have something to talk about with this thing. So watch out for that future video. All right, that's it for now. Thanks so much for everyone. And again, I will address other concerns like what happened to WL and etc. 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 in a future video. It's coming. It's been very busy, so bear with me. And thanks so much for listening for this entire yap. And I'll see everyone next time. Peace out.